Because for me, the most important thing in my life is family, and everything is about the future and about if you don't start the children off now with a happy, healthy, stable home, I feel you're setting them up for a bit of a hard time and a fall.
A truth too shocking to believe. Prince William and Catherine thought they knew their son, but when DNA test results came back, everything changed in an instant. Palace insiders were left speechless. The media went into overdrive, and what they discovered about Prince Louis that night would send shockwaves through the royal family forever.
Love is the first and most essential bond, but it's also the invisible thread, woven with time, attention and tenderness, through consistent nurturing relationships, which creates the grounded and meaningful environments around a child.
Anonymous letters, a suspicious hospital mix-up, another family with an identical claim. The pieces were falling into place, and the answer was more devastating than anyone could have imagined. This is the moment that changed the royals forever. The British royal family has always been subject to intense public scrutiny, but few could have predicted the storm of speculation that would emerge around Prince Louis, the youngest child of Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales. What began as casual observations during a sunny royal event quickly spiraled into a full-blown controversy that would test the family in ways no one anticipated. Started on an ordinary summer afternoon when the Wales family attended a garden party at one of the royal residences. Hundreds of guests had gathered on the palace grounds, enjoying the warm weather and the opportunity to catch a glimpse of the royal family. Prince Louis, holding his mother's hand, walked through the crowds with his characteristic curiosity. Catherine smiled warmly at attendees while William greeted officials near the main tent. Photographers, as always, captured every moment of the family's appearance. But this time, something felt different. People in attendance and those watching coverage of the event began to notice details about Louis that they hadn't paid much attention to before. The way the sunlight caught his hair seemed unusual to some observers. His facial features appeared distinct when compared to his older siblings, Prince George and Princess Charlotte. What started as innocent observations quickly gained momentum on social media platforms. Within minutes of the event, posts began appearing online. Users shared their thoughts about family resemblances, or the apparent lack thereof. The comments were initially harmless enough, simple questions about how children can look so different from one another within the same family. However, as more people joined the conversation, the tone shifted. Someone created a comparison image showing all three Wales children side by side, and this post went viral almost immediately. The comparison seemed to tell a story that many found compelling. George bore his father's strong features and inherited his mother's distinctive eyes. Charlotte resembled Catherine so closely that the likeness was almost uncanny. Louis, however, appeared different in ways that people struggled to articulate but couldn't ignore. The post accumulated thousands of shares within hours, with each person adding their own observations and theories to the growing thread. Royal watchers who follow the family's every move with dedicated attention joined the discussion with their own detailed analyses. They began pulling up archive photographs from various events over the years, examining images from christenings, birthdays, and official appearances. Each photograph seemed to support what was becoming a widely held belief that Louis stood apart from his siblings in appearance. The conversations evolved from casual observation to serious speculation. Nobody wanted to state their suspicions directly, but the implication hung heavily in the digital air. People were beginning to wonder if there was more to the story than simple genetic variation. The whispers grew louder as the day progressed, and more individuals joined the conversation. What had started as a few comments on a single post had transformed into a widespread discussion across multiple platforms. Catherine reportedly noticed the shift in atmosphere during the garden party itself. The way people stared at Louis seemed more intense than the usual curiosity, directed at royal children. Their eyes studied him with a focus that went beyond normal interest. William also sensed that something had changed in how guests were looking at their youngest son, though he continued greeting people and maintaining his composure. Both parents instinctively moved closer to Louis, creating a protective barrier around him without discussing why they felt compelled to do so. As evening fell, the online theories became increasingly elaborate. Some individuals claimed to possess inside information about the hospital where Louis was born. Others suggested they had evidence of unusual circumstances surrounding his arrival into the world. Anonymous accounts began posting detailed stories about potential mix-ups or substitutions at the hospital. the rumours spread faster than anyone could have anticipated or controlled. By the evening news cycle, television programmes had picked up the story. Entertainment shows displayed the comparison photographs during their segments, inviting viewers to examine the images themselves. Hosts carefully avoided making direct accusations, but the format of their coverage encouraged audiences to draw their own conclusions. Throughout all of this, the palace maintained its silence, neither confirming nor denying the speculations swirling around the young prince. This wasn't entirely unprecedented. Royal families in other nations had faced similar speculation about their children in the past. However, the speed and reach of social media had amplified this situation beyond anything previous generations had experienced. Catherine's parents, upon seeing the reports, immediately contacted their daughter to express their concern about the growing narrative and its potential impact on Louis. Friends of William also reached out with messages of support, recognizing the difficult position the family found itself in. Palace staff began monitoring the situation closely, preparing possible response strategies while trying to determine the best course of action. Everyone within the royal household felt the weight of the accusations hanging in the air. School officials at the institution, attended by George and Charlotte, started receiving questions from other parents who wondered whether the rumours held any truth or represented nothing more than baseless gossip. Through all of this, Louis himself remained blissfully unaware of the storm gathering around him. He continued playing with his toys, enjoying time with his siblings, and living the life of a normal 7-year-old boy, as much as any royal child can. George and Charlotte heard whispers and saw concerned looks from adults, but their parents did their best to shield them from the worst of the comments circulating online and in the press. The family maintained their regular routine despite the chaos erupting outside the palace walls. They understood that giving in to the pressure or changing their behaviour would only fuel further speculation. Yet, privately, the situation weighed heavily on William and Catherine, who found themselves facing questions they never imagined they would need to confront. The Wales family had become the centre of global attention for reasons that caught everyone off guard. Some old friends came forward publicly, defending the family and sharing personal stories about Louis's early years and his obvious connection to his parents. However, these testimonials did little to slow the spreading theories. People seemed to want definitive proof rather than emotional accounts from those who knew the family personally. What had begun as a pleasant summer garden party had transformed into a crisis that would challenge everything the family believed about themselves and force them to make decisions that would have lasting consequences for everyone involved. The situation took a more serious turn approximately 1 week after the initial speculation began circulating online and in the media. On what seemed like an ordinary morning, palace mail staff were sorting through their usual hundreds of items when they noticed a particular envelope that stood out from the rest. It arrived in plain white paper with no return address, featuring neat handwriting across the front. The letter inside contained 4 typed pages filled with specific details about the day Prince Louis was born. Security personnel, following standard protocol, examined the contents carefully before passing it along to senior staff members. The writer claimed to have worked at the private hospital where Catherine gave birth to Louis. They described what they characterized as unusual circumstances during that April evening in 2018. The letter mentioned a brief power outage that had affected the maternity ward, explaining how staff had moved quickly to ensure all mothers and babies remained safe during the incident. What made this letter particularly unsettling was the level of detail it contained. The anonymous writer provided exact times and specific locations within the hospital. They described which rooms Catherine had occupied and detailed when medical staff had moved her during the emergency. This wasn't the vague speculation that had been circulating on social media. The specificity suggested genuine inside knowledge rather than an invented story. Someone had clearly been present during those critical hours, or at least had access to information from someone who was. 3 days later, a second letter arrived with additional information. This one described another baby who had been born that same night in an adjacent room. The writer explained how both newborns had ended up in the same temporary location during the power outage. Medical staff had been working by emergency lighting while ensuring both infants received proper care. The confusion of that moment, according to the letter, had created possibilities for error that nobody had wanted to acknowledge at the time. Palace officials found themselves in a difficult position. Some dismissed the letters as elaborate hoaxes designed to exploit the recent speculation and cause trouble for the royal family. Others worried that ignoring potentially truthful information could lead to bigger problems down the line. The letters sat in a secure office while senior advisors held lengthy discussions about their options and the implications of each possible response. William learned about the letters during a routine security briefing. Those present reported that his face remained calm, though his hands gripped the armrests of his chair tightly. He asked to see the documents himself, despite protocol typically suggesting otherwise. As he read through the pages, they felt heavy in his hands. Everything inside him wanted to dismiss the claims as lies, as malicious fabrications designed to hurt his family. Catherine found out that same evening when William showed her the letters. She read them twice in complete silence, her mind traveling back to that night when Louis arrived. She remembered feeling exhausted and overwhelmed by the birth experience. The power outage had frightened her briefly before staff members assured her that everything was under control. She recalled nurses moving quickly through rooms and hallways, their usual calm efficiency replaced by controlled urgency as they worked to manage the situation. A third letter arrived the following week, and this one included photographs. The images showed the hospital's maternity ward layout from that specific time period. Certain areas were circled in red pen with handwritten notes explaining staff movements during the emergency. The writer had documented their claims with supporting evidence that looked disturbingly legitimate. This wasn't just someone making wild accusations. Someone had put considerable effort into presenting a case that appeared credible. Palace lawyers examined the letters carefully, searching for any identifying information that might reveal the sender's identity. They found nothing useful. The paper came from common office supply stores that could be found anywhere in the country. The envelopes matched millions sold across Britain. Even the typing style offered no clues about who sat behind the keyboard creating these messages. Someone had taken great care to remain completely anonymous while sharing information that could shake the royal family to its core. After seeing the letters and their contents, Catherine found herself unable to sleep well. She would lie awake at night, replaying memories of Louis's birth in her mind. Every detail that had once seemed perfectly normal now carried potential significance. She questioned her own recollections, wondering if exhaustion and the overwhelming nature of childbirth had prevented her from noticing something important. William would find her in the middle of the night, staring at baby photographs of Louis, searching the images for answers they couldn't provide. The couple requested complete hospital records from that evening, hoping official documentation might clarify the situation. Staff pulled files showing admissions, room assignments, and the timing of all births that occurred. The records confirmed that 2 babies had indeed been born within an hour of each other. The power outage, according to maintenance logs, had lasted exactly 17 minutes. Both mothers and their infants had received excellent care throughout the incident. Nothing in the official paperwork suggested any problems or irregularities. However, a 4th letter arrived containing even more disturbing details. The writer described specific staff members who had worked that night without naming them directly. They claimed to have overheard conversations in hallways that raised concerns at the time, but were never formally reported. The anonymous source explained that their silence over the years had been motivated by fear for their career and professional reputation. Recent speculation had finally pushed them to reveal what they knew, or believed they knew. Palace investigators attempted to trace where the letters had been posted. The stamps came from different postal codes scattered across London. Someone was deliberately moving around the city to mail each envelope from various locations. This level of planning and caution suggested serious intent rather than casual mischief or a simple prank. Every letter that arrived carried new risks for the family, and especially for Louis himself. The boy deserved protection from adult problems he couldn't possibly understand. Catherine talked extensively with her mother about the situation during this period. She needed someone outside the palace system to provide perspective and honest counsel. Her mother listened carefully to everything her daughter shared before offering simple but profound advice about trusting maternal instinct. Catherine had carried Louis for 9 months and knew him from his very first breath. No letter, regardless of its contents or apparent credibility, could change the bond that had been formed during pregnancy and strengthened through years of daily care. Yet ignoring the letters felt increasingly impossible as they continued to arrive. A 5th and supposedly final letter came with a direct request. the writer urged the palace to conduct DNA testing for everyone's peace of mind. They claimed no malicious intent behind their communications, insisting instead that they were motivated by concern for truth and justice. The letter ended with an apology for causing distress to the family, but the writer insisted that the matter required proper resolution. Someone needed to know the truth with absolute certainty. At that point, with 5 detailed letters in hand and public speculation showing no signs of diminishing, William and Catherine found themselves facing a decision that would fundamentally change everything. They could continue ignoring the situation and hope it eventually faded from public attention, or they could take decisive action to discover the truth, whatever that truth might be. The choice before them carried enormous implications not just for their family, but for the monarchy itself. While the palace grappled with the anonymous letters and mounting speculation, an entirely separate story was unfolding in a modest home across London. A young woman sat in her small living room one evening, watching the news as coverage of Prince Louis at a royal event filled the screen. Her husband walked in carrying their 7-year-old son, Thomas, fresh from his bath and wearing pajamas covered in cartoon characters. The woman glanced casually at her son, then back at the television screen. Something caught her attention in a way it never had before. She asked her husband to wait a moment before taking Thomas to bed. The news segment continued, showing different angles of the young prince at the event. She found herself studying the child's features with increasing intensity. Her heart began beating faster as she noticed similarities she had never considered before. Her husband, confused by her sudden fixation on the television, asked what was wrong. She couldn't immediately find the words to explain what she was seeing, or thought she was seeing. The woman picked up her phone and began searching for more images of Prince Louis. Dozens of photographs appeared, showing the boy at various ages and royal events over the years. She held her phone next to her son's face and her hands started shaking. The resemblance seemed impossible to ignore once she really looked with fresh eyes. It wasn't just one feature, but a combination of characteristics that seemed to align in ways she had never noticed before. Thomas had always been somewhat different from both of his parents in obvious ways. His hair color matched neither his mother's dark brown nor his father's light blonde. His eyes carried a shade of blue that nobody in either extended family seemed to possess. His facial structure appeared refined in ways that didn't quite match their working-class features. Over the years, they had always explained these differences as random genetic variations, the kind of quirks that happen in families without any particular significance. The young woman showed her husband the comparison on her phone. He laughed at first, assuming she was making some kind of joke. His smile faded quickly when he saw the serious expression on her face. The man took the phone from her hands and studied the images more carefully. He looked at Thomas standing between them, then back at the screen. The similarities became increasingly difficult to dismiss once someone actually pointed them out. The couple had discussed their son's differences before, but never in any serious way. Thomas was intelligent beyond what seemed typical for his age. He showed interest in classical music and art that neither parent had introduced to him. Teachers frequently commented on his natural grace and manners, qualities that seemed innate rather than learned. Both parents had felt proud of these characteristics without ever questioning their origin or wondering where they came from. What made this moment particularly significant was a detail the woman suddenly remembered. Thomas had been born at a private hospital in London on the exact same date as Prince Louis. She recalled the experience clearly because of complications during her delivery. Medical staff had moved her between rooms several times that night. There had been a power outage that caused temporary chaos throughout the maternity ward. Nurses had worked quickly to ensure all mothers and babies remained safe during the emergency situation. The woman recalled feeling confused and exhausted after giving birth. Staff had brought her baby wrapped in blankets while the hospital operated on backup power. She had held her newborn in dim lighting, feeling overwhelming love despite her exhaustion and physical discomfort. Her husband had arrived minutes later and met his son for the first time. Neither parent had questioned anything in those emotional moments. They were too overwhelmed with the miracle of new life to notice details that might have seemed unusual under different circumstances. Thomas's birth had been hectic and overwhelming in every way. During the first few weeks, the mother struggled with recovery while learning to care for a demanding newborn. Her husband juggled work responsibilities while trying to support his wife and their new son. They brought Thomas home and focused simply on survival through sleepless nights and constant feedings. Months passed before life settled into anything resembling normal routines. By then, any peculiarities from the hospital experience had been long forgotten. The woman began searching online for information about hospital mix-ups after seeing the news coverage and making her observations. She found stories from various countries where babies had been accidentally switched at birth. Most cases involved chaos, emergencies, or system failures during critical moments. The scenarios described in these articles matched her own experience more closely than she wanted to admit. Power outages, confused staff, multiple mothers giving birth simultaneously, all created conditions where mistakes became possible. Her husband suggested they were overthinking random coincidences. He argued quite reasonably that many children look different from their parents for completely normal genetic reasons. The woman wanted desperately to believe him, but couldn't shake the feeling that something was fundamentally wrong. She had always felt a slight distance from Thomas that she had blamed on postpartum difficulties or her own inadequacies as a first-time mother. What if that feeling had been an instinct trying to tell her something important? The couple stayed awake until early morning, discussing possibilities that seemed increasingly plausible as exhaustion set in. They reviewed every memory from the hospital and Thomas's early life. Small details that had seemed insignificant before now carried unexpected weight. The way nurses had been rushed and distracted during the power outage. The confusion about which baby belonged in which room when backup systems failed. The apologetic tone staff members use when discussing the emergency situation days later during follow-up visits. The implications were almost too enormous to process. If Thomas wasn't their biological child, that meant the royal family was raising the baby she had actually delivered. That child would be the same age as Thomas, living a completely different life surrounded by wealth, privilege, and constant public attention. The thought made her feel physically sick with grief and confusion. At the same time, her husband worried about what any investigation might mean for their family. Thomas was their son, regardless of biology. They had raised him with love and devotion for 7 years. DNA couldn't possibly change the bond they had built through daily care and countless shared experiences. Yet they also understood they might be keeping a child from his true parents and raising someone else's biological son. Thomas called from his bedroom, asking for water, breaking their intense conversation. His mother went to him and found herself staring at his face in the soft glow of his nightlight. She saw both a stranger and her beloved son at the same time. The internal conflict tore at her heart in ways she had never experienced. She brought him water and kissed his forehead before returning to her husband in the living room. The couple made a difficult decision. They would contact the hospital first before approaching anyone else or making their concerns public. They needed information about that night and whether mix-ups were even possible, given the hospital's procedures and safeguards. The woman drafted an email to the hospital administration, carefully describing their concerns without making direct accusations. Her finger hovered over the send button for several minutes. Clicking it would start a process they couldn't reverse, opening doors that could never be closed again. Her husband held her other hand as she finally pressed send. The email disappeared into the digital void, carrying with it their fears, questions, and hopes for answers. Whatever came next, their lives would never be the same. They had set something in motion that would eventually intersect with the royal family's own investigation, creating a situation that nobody could have predicted or prepared for adequately. The emergency meeting convened at 7 o'clock on a quiet morning, bringing together senior palace advisors behind tightly closed doors. The private conference room filled with individuals wearing serious expressions, each understanding the gravity of what they were about to discuss. William and Catherine sat at the head of the long table, both looking exhausted from nights of poor sleep and constant worry. The anonymous letters and the rapidly growing speculation had created a crisis that demanded immediate decisions and careful handling. The palace's chief communications advisor argued strongly for maintaining complete silence on the matter. He believed that engaging with what he considered baseless speculation would only legitimize conspiracy theories that deserve no official recognition. Royal families had weathered far worse storms throughout history by maintaining dignified silence and refusing to dignify rumors with responses. The public's attention span was notoriously short, he argued, and people would inevitably move on to new topics within a few weeks if given no fuel to keep the fire burning. He cited numerous historical examples where royal families had successfully waited out speculation without ever addressing it directly. However, others in the room disagreed with this assessment. This situation had moved beyond typical tabloid gossip into territory that required careful and thoughtful handling. Catherine spoke quietly but firmly about her concerns for Louis's future. The boy would eventually learn about these rumors as he grew older and gained access to the internet and historical news coverage. She wanted him to know that his parents had pursued truth rather than hiding from difficult questions when they arose. Children deserved honesty from the adults in their lives, even when that honesty required confronting painful possibilities. Her voice remained steady as she spoke, though those present could hear the emotion barely contained beneath her words. William supported his wife's position despite his own considerable fears about what testing might reveal. He explained to those gathered that DNA testing would either confirm Louis as their biological son or reveal an unthinkable mistake made years ago. Either outcome, he argued, was ultimately better than years of lingering speculation, and doubt that would follow their family indefinitely. They needed certainty to move forward with their lives and to give Louis the stable foundation he deserved. The alternative was allowing their son to grow up under a cloud of suspicion and whispered theories that could affect his sense of identity and belonging. The private secretary raised practical concerns about testing procedures that couldn't be ignored. Any laboratory work would require absolute secrecy to prevent leaks to the media before results were available. The results themselves would need verification from multiple independent sources to satisfy inevitable public scrutiny and prevent accusations of manipulation or tampering. The entire process would take considerable time and require careful coordination with medical professionals who could be trusted completely. He outlined the various steps involved and the security measures that would need to be implemented at each stage. Catherine asked detailed questions about the other family who had contacted the hospital with their own concerns. She wanted to know everything about them and their situation, feeling a strange connection to people she had never met but who were experiencing similar turmoil. Staff provided basic information about the working-class couple and their son Thomas, who had been born the same night as Louis at the same hospital during the power outage. His parents had noticed striking similarities after seeing recent news coverage and began questioning their own certainty about their son's identity. The parallel nature of their situations created an uncomfortable reality that nobody could easily dismiss. The room fell into heavy silence as everyone processed the implications of this information. Two separate families were now questioning their children's identities based on events from the same evening at the same location. The probability of this being mere coincidence seemed impossibly small. Something had clearly happened that night that nobody wanted to acknowledge or confront directly. The truth, whatever it might be, needed to emerge from careful investigation rather than continued speculation. The weight of responsibility for discovering that truth now rested squarely on the shoulders of everyone in the room. William requested copies of all hospital records from the night Louis was born. He wanted to personally review every detail before making final decisions about how to proceed. Staff members promised to obtain complete documentation, including maintenance reports about the power outage and any incident reports filed that evening. Every piece of information, no matter how seemingly insignificant, might prove relevant during a thorough investigation. The hospital's cooperation would be essential, and palace lawyers would handle those negotiations carefully to ensure full disclosure. The royal physician joined the meeting to discuss testing protocols in detail. He explained carefully how DNA analysis worked and what results would definitively prove about biological relationships. Samples from William, Catherine, and Louis would need to be collected under secure conditions with proper chain of custody documentation. Independent laboratories would analyze the genetic material and compare specific markers between family members to determine biological parentage with absolute certainty. He emphasized that modern DNA testing left no room for ambiguity when performed correctly by reputable facilities. Catherine asked how long the entire process would take from sample collection to final results. The physician estimated between 1 and 2 weeks, depending on laboratory schedules and the complexity of analysis required. Every day of waiting would feel endless for the family, but rushing the process could compromise accuracy and leave room for doubt. They needed to prepare themselves mentally for an extended period of uncertainty and anxiety. The physician also mentioned that he could arrange for counseling support if the family felt they needed professional help managing the emotional strain. The communications advisor asked about managing public perception during the testing period. The palace faced a choice between announcing their actions publicly or conducting everything in complete secrecy. A public announcement might stop some speculation by showing the family's commitment to transparency. However, it would also intensify media attention and create enormous pressure during an already difficult time. Secret testing carried its own risks, potentially looking deceptive if discovered later by investigative journalists. The media landscape has changed dramatically in recent years, making it increasingly difficult to keep any significant action completely private. William made a decision that surprised some in the room. He wanted transparency rather than secrecy. He asked for a brief official statement explaining the family's decision to pursue DNA testing. The announcement would acknowledge recent speculation directly and confirm their commitment to discovering truth regardless of personal discomfort. Most importantly, the results would be shared publicly once they became available, leaving no room for continued conspiracy theories. He believed that honesty, even when painful, served the monarchy better than appearing to hide information from the public. Palace lawyers discussed potential legal implications of various outcomes that might emerge from testing. If results confirmed Louis as William and Catherine's biological son, the family could potentially pursue legal action against those who had spread demonstrably false claims. If results revealed an actual hospital mistake, extraordinarily complex questions about custody and identity would require resolution through potentially unprecedented legal proceedings. The lawyers would need to research similar cases from other jurisdictions to understand possible frameworks for handling such an extraordinary situation. Catherine felt tears building behind her eyes, but refused to let them fall during the professional meeting. She thought about Louis playing with his siblings at that exact moment, completely unaware that adults were discussing his identity and future in grave tones. All she wanted was to protect him from this nightmare, but she knew that protection was no longer fully within her power to provide. The helplessness she felt was almost overwhelming, yet she maintained her composure for the sake of everyone who looked to her for strength. The private secretary began organizing detailed logistics for the testing process. Every step required meticulous planning to maintain confidentiality while ensuring proper protocols. William asked what they should tell Louis about the medical procedures he would undergo. The physician suggested treating everything as routine health screening that all family members underwent regularly for preventive care. The boy was far too young to understand complex explanations about DNA testing and identity questions. Simple, age-appropriate answers would suffice until they knew more. Protecting his innocence for as long as possible remained a top priority. The meeting concluded with clear assignments for everyone present. Staff would obtain comprehensive hospital records and arrange laboratory testing through trusted facilities. The private secretary would contact approved laboratories and arrange secure sample collection at the palace. William and Catherine would focus on maintaining normal family routines while privately enduring the wait for results that would change everything. Each person left the room understanding the historical significance of what was unfolding. Catherine stood and walked slowly to the tall window overlooking the palace gardens. Below, she could see Louis playing outside with his security detail, standing at a discreet distance. The boy laughed at something and ran across the grass with pure joy. Her heart ached, with love and fear in equal measure, as she whispered a silent prayer that testing would confirm what she desperately wanted to believe. William joined her at the window and took her hand gently. Together they watched their son and prepared themselves for whatever truth awaited them in the coming days.